From the farthest reaches of the galaxy, the Midwest, you're watching Beyond the Blast Doors live.
Episode 60 of Beyond the Blast Doors. Happy to be with you on this Sunday. Issue number 60, number 60, episode 60, however you want to say it. Just glad we're getting closer and closer to that episode 100. We're a little more than halfway there, David.
I'm glad we're out of the 50s.
Really?
Because I really like the number 6. 60 is just a great number.
Okay. That's a very fascinating take. You're more of like an even number kind of guy, right?
Very much so.
You don't like the odds.
Nope.
See, I'm very much odd.
Really?
That's what my mother said.
So tomorrow we can compromise, or next week you'll be 61. You can enjoy the 1, I'll have the 6.
I will. And the best thing about our friendship is the fact that you'll be 61 before I am. Hey, we got a great show planned for you today. Really excited about it. Anytime I can mention the fact that you're 4 years older, I'm going to take the shot. We have a really great show, jam-packed, really excited about it. Right off the top, we're going to be joined by a special guest. Mention him in just a moment. We've also, we just got a lot to get through. We've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, ultimately will get a TV streaming show.
Which is exciting.
It's very possible. There's also a Leia series, a Rose Tico series, Knights of the Ren series.
A lot of different possibilities out there.
We're going to talk about it all. We also have our favorite character from every live-action Star Wars movie. I stole this from Twitter.
This was hard for me.
Really?
There were like 3 movies where this was very challenging for me to like narrow it down to one movie.
This should have been very...
character.
This should have been easy for you. I'm excited to dive into it. But what I'm also excited about is that we have a special guest today. And again, we'll introduce him shortly. But first, I want to take a look at happening on this day in Star Wars. David, what do you have for us this week?
2012, we have the Clone Wars episode Massacre airing. In 2015, we get a Star Wars Legends book focusing on Han Solo called Honor Amongst Thieves in paperback. 2016, we had 2 big Star Wars things. Kanan, number 11 comic, First Blood, Part 5. The Fog of War was released, and we also had a little screen time with the Honorable Ones on Disney XD.
And Jordan, in that scene, I believe we have the thumbs for all of those graphics. And I just want to cycle through a couple of them real quick. Is Massacre, that was the scene where Mother Towson did like kind of like this like voodoo magic on Dooku. It gave him like warts and stuff. It was pretty cool. Yeah, you're seeing the image on the screen. It's just like solid stuff.
God bless space wizardry.
You know what though? At first I remember not being a fan of like the Night Sisters and that whole concept. But honestly, you forget about it like not even 3 minutes later, because you realize just how incredible that Maul story is expanded. The way Dave Filoni writes that story, the way that Sam Witwer like breathes new life into Maul, just awesome. So I wanted to shout that one out. And of course, the Honorable Ones is episode of Rebels. That's pretty solid. I believe that's the one with oh man, I'm drawing a blank. It's the one where the Rebel and the Imperial are tied on the same. Because every time I think of this Imperial guy who actually ends up being a spy for the Rebels, I always think that he was going to be Draven from Rogue One.
This one is where Zeb and Agent Kallus find themselves stranded on an icy moon of Geonosis. Oh, I remember that one. I enjoyed that one.
See, we got there. We got there. So now that we've got an establishment of where we've come from in the last couple of years on this day, I think it's important that we go ahead and introduce our guest today. You might have heard him sneeze a couple of moments ago, but he is, I'm just giving you trouble, John Hoey. He joins us from StarWarsNewsNet.com. He's also the co-host of the Resistance broadcast, and he is on the line right now. We're going to bring him up. And John, I just want to say thank you for the first time. Welcome to Beyond the Blast Doors.
Guys, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor. This is my first time on a pod or video show, whatever you want to call it, that isn't called the Resistance broadcast. So this is pretty cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. I was really excited when John reached back out to me and he was like, I definitely going to come on the show. Let's talk some Star Wars. I talk about it quite often. I love the positivity of the Resistance broadcast, especially the way John and James, Lacey, they have this conversation where everyone has their own opinion, they'll differ on things, but it's kind of like here where it's just like, have your opinion, we're going to respect you either way, but let's just have fun Star Wars conversation. And so, John, before we dive into Real Talk, the first segment of our show, can you just kind of break down what's the latest news with Resistance broadcast right now? You guys kind of had a reboot about, what, a year and a half ago?
Yeah, it's fair. Like mid 2017, we kind of hit the reset button and changed how we formatted the podcast and cast the characters and that sort of thing, and what our goals were for the podcast, which is just to reach more people. But immediate goals now is just our eye on Star Wars Celebration. We're doing a panel on the podcast stage So we're trying to piece that together while at the same time working on our Patreon page. We have a lot of content we're doing there. Very active. Like every day we're putting new stuff on there. So just very excited. 2019 is a big year for us. But you know, it's all about the love of Star Wars, as you put it. You know, we try to give honest takes, hot takes. I hate saying hot takes, but honest takes, real takes, but doing it in a respectful way. And we realize that is still possible to do in 2019, even though a lot of people may not think so.
Well, glad you're part of our Star Wars conversation today, and let's go ahead and dive into Real Talk, the first segment of Beyond the Blast Doors. Thank you for joining us live on episode 60 of our show. Thanks to everyone already in the live chat. We'll jump into you in just a couple of moments. If you're watching on the Rewind, thank you for joining us here on the Rewind. First topic, though, is Disney Chairman Alan Horn discusses the future of Star Wars, and I will preface this with, we know that there is certain dialogue that we will get with the Disney chairman or any kind of chairman of a company. They're going to be pretty pretty positive on the product. Very rarely do you ever hear someone that's like representing, you know, Disney or the big corporation going, I gotta be honest, that's a pile of garbage. That wasn't our best effort. Wasn't our best foot forward. But an interview with Hollywood Reporter, Horn talked a lot about Disney Plus and that shift of storytelling that we've talked about. Lucasfilm kind of shifting from the big screen, putting a focus on the TV, the streaming service. And the first thing he mentioned, which I think is probably the most interesting, because I think, John, you would say, because this is a story that was on StarWarsNewsNet.com that you guys kind of broke down further, you would say typically it's not really a news story, but the words about Kathleen Kennedy having brought the story of Mandalorian with Lucasfilm, bring that pitch to Disney, that's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I would say so, because a lot of people see that because Kathleen Kennedy's kind of been lying in the weeds a lot in terms of the public eye over the past year, I would say. Even on the podcast, we joke about, like, you know, is she okay? We need to find out if Kathleen Kennedy's okay.
Where is she?
But you hear that, and people run with, oh, well, it was Kathleen Kennedy's idea. But if you look back at Horn's words, he said, well, Kathy Kennedy and Lucasfilm came up with the idea. So we don't know where that came from at Lucasfilm. When I think of Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think of her as a deep lore type of person. So Mandalorian, I can't see that being on the top of her head. So I think it was probably a collective of where that came from. But
that's all right.
I mean,
nice as the boss, you get to take claim for all of your subordinates' great ideas, right?
That's the beauty of it. Yes, but it is nice to know, I guess, that Star Wars content is coming from Star Wars. So I guess that's reassuring.
Lucasfilm?
Instead of it being Bob Iger saying, like, let's do this, and then they're like, okay, follow lead,
Well, and I don't think it's kind of a big deal. I don't want to say it's a big deal. I am comforted as a fan, purely as a fan, that he would name drop Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm, because unfortunately with the Solo movie, the conversation started going towards, well, Bob Iger wanted this movie to be in this part of the year so that this quarter of the year would be even more successful for Disney. And you just heard about how Bob Iger and Disney were making some decisions that might have negatively impacted what I thought. I thought Solo was a good Star Wars story. Like I thought it was a fun movie. It's kind of what I anticipated the standalone movies being like. And I feel like, to me, just kind of echoing what you said, I like the idea that Lucasfilm, like, I want to think that John Knoll at Lucasfilm or ILM was the one that came out and said, I got this story idea too, because it goes back to Rogue One. He was the one that came up with that idea for Rogue One, and he mentioned, I have a couple other ideas that, we might see come to fruition in the future. And I'm thinking, you know what, maybe that's where it came from, and maybe that's something that's revealed later on. But again, just as a fan, I like that the House of Star Wars is producing the future stories for Star Wars.
It's reassuring, for sure.
There was some interesting talk about Solo. We might as well dive into this. There was a quote, though, and I kind of wanted to get your take. This is, I think, John, where you talk about how it's a non-story in the sense that what else are they going to say? In this quote that we have from Alan Horn talking about the Solo movie, he says, it's always a challenge because, and I say this with love and respect for media, the thing about these big movies is they get a lot of attention, whether positive or negative. So when they don't work, like Solo, the media says it's a failure. I think it was a pretty good movie. It didn't resonate as much as we'd hoped it would, but the press writes it up in a more negative way than I would have. They are very high-profile movies. I think there's some accountability in that statement somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to, if you're a chairman and you are on the hot seat in terms of investors saying, does this guy know what he's talking about? You're not going to smack yourself in the face. So he's going to paint a picture as bright as he can about things that maybe didn't go as well as we thought. Now, Solo didn't do as well as they thought. It wasn't a bomb, though, by any stretch of the imagination. It wasn't Geely, if you've ever heard of that movie. But
It was not a bad movie. Just
no,
didn't
it
do
was a
well.
good movie, and the audience scores on CinemaScore, which I consider CinemaScore the best way to rate movies because they're getting people walking out of the theaters. It's not someone hiding behind a keyboard creating usernames and bombing like they do on Rotten Tomatoes. And it got an A- on CinemaScore, and you see people over and over saying, "I didn't go see this movie because I heard this or because of this," and then they tweet out or they talk to you and they say, I thought it was a great movie. And you're like, well, maybe you should have gone and seen it on the big screen then. Maybe it's fun. But.
Well, I don't try and give the boycott a whole lot of stock. Like, I think it's a very small group of people online that are trying to get clicks or just trying to get a reaction for it. But I really do think that at the end of the day, Solo's box office lack of success came down to bad time in the year. Fans had kind of been groomed for a Star Wars movie in December. They were still on the Last Jedi hangover, and then the poor marketing. You know, you had to take some money out of the marketing because you had to make up for all the
Film
reshoots.
a second movie, basically.
You know, basically film a second movie, and then also the fact that Infinity War is going to take priority. You know, we've talked about it on the show, John. You know, the fact that we talked to a buddy of ours that worked at Target, and he was like, we weren't allowed to put Solo merch on the end cap of an aisle. That was only for Avengers: Infinity War. Which
is that right? Oh man.
Which brings my concern, which is, the problem I have with Disney owning all of it is that it's not competition anymore for these movies. It's prioritizing. So we're gonna get Endgame stuff, and that's why I think that my whole view on the trailer and the title of Episode 9, they're gonna put it at Celebration because they want the priority right now for everyone to be Endgame. They don't want you thinking about another big blockbuster. They want you to go see this movie 3 or 4 times, and then once that's out, then we're going to bring in Star Wars Episode 9 to get your money 3 or 4 times.
See, normally I'm a big fan of competition, but in this case, I'm kind of okay with Disney having a large chunk of the market and having to prioritize. Because if you look at the year in terms of movies, you have a lot of big blockbusters that come out in the summer and a lot that come out between Thanksgiving and Christmas, so people can go see them during the holidays. But that leaves like January, February, August, September with nothing to go see. So if they can start getting to a rhythm of, okay, we need to prioritize, we may start having like a big movie every month come out that would actually be worth seeing instead of having 5 of them drop in 6 weeks between May and June.
Yeah, but see, you're just rolling over where I feel like we should be like, we just want it to be like the best Star Wars movie. I don't know. I mean, John, am I making this a bigger deal, do you think? Am I making this a bigger deal? I just want the best Star Wars story possible, and I want the biggest audience to see it. I feel like sometimes the mouse ears get in the way when they're trying to promote their Avengers stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of things about the marketing. I mean, the marketing of Solo was a disaster. If you're putting all your chips on Denny's, I mean, that's a sign right there. I mean, no offense if you like Denny's.
Well, and don't forget that they stole the concept for their posters. Like, they had to go back. They bummed the scheme for their character posters off like a French jazz musician.
Yeah, and you hear rumors that this marketing for Solo was kind of like a slap on the wrist to Lucasfilm for moving stuff around, and Bob Iger definitely put his foot down and said, we're not moving this thing to December. You hear rumblings that Lucasfilm wanted to do that. In terms of the Episode 9 marketing, they are going to market this thing heavily on nostalgia, on this being the finality. So we're going to get tired of the marketing for Episode 9. There's not going to be any lack of that. Now, I heard you mention maybe title reveal at Celebration. And the reason I don't think that, and credit to Lacey on our podcast, Lacey Gillerin, she used to work for ReedPop and worked in these events and putting these events together. I guess in 2015, there was debacles over the T-shirts that had the name The Force Awakens on it, and in the stores, and they sold out, and people were like looting and stealing and stuff like that. If they have to put this title out before then, because they need to have pre-orders for these shirts. They need to have these things organized. It's not so much for JJ wanting to reveal things when he wants to reveal them. It's for the sanity and chaos that would happen at Celebration if they put that title out then and then try to stock the shelves to sell the T-shirts. I just don't see that happening. So I think we are going to get that title soon. And I would be shocked if they waited till Celebration to pop that title out there.
Where do you think they're going to drop that title? Is it going to be on Good Morning America?
No, I think they like patterns. They really do. So when you look back to, I think it was The Force Awakens, it was like 5 days after filming wrapped, they popped up a tweet, and then it was affiliate at the same time they did a starwars.com type of thing. And same thing with The Last Jedi, like mid-January, it was months after filming was done, but they just like popped up a tweet and then put out an article on starwars.com. They want to give it its own stage. So when people were like, "Oh, Super Bowl," is like, no chance. They want it to have its own thing. So whether it's an arbitrary Thursday at 2:00, boom, that's the time. That's when everybody's going to talk about it.
Well,
so it's going to be one of those momentary things that they may or may not announce, and they just pop it up there and throw it up with an article. That's what I see happening.
I can totally buy a random day, because we've even said on the show before, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, whoever you want to give credit to it, they will crash the internet the moment they put this title up there. Exactly. They will be the number one thing trending on all social media platforms. You'll have all the major networks running a VO with Last Jedi footage, about the title being dropped. So I want to see that revealed sooner. I just feel I felt like I read this report recently that they were saying that the trailer probably wouldn't drop until Celebration, or that it might be attached to the end of Avengers Endgame.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stick it.
So
everybody's going to go see that movie.
Yeah, we had put that report out there. I actually wrote it myself based on information I was told that the trailer's not going to debut till April. They didn't specify Celebration, but come on, right? And then they said it will be attached to Avengers. And it's funny, a lot of people were like, in the comments, I know you guys were talking about your comments sometimes in the comments. Even in the conclusion of the article, I put, "Yeah, I get it. Water is wet," but I want to put that out there now. And then, of course, people in the comments who didn't read the article were like, "Yeah, breaking news, water is wet." And I would screenshot the part of my article where I said water is wet and send it to them and be like, "I beat you to the punch. I got you."
I appreciated when you made that point on Twitter. You're like, I've already protected myself, and then like 5 minutes later, oh, here's the first person to say, "Oh, water's wet." It was great, but that's why we also
it's just having fun.
Absolutely, and that's why we want to have you on the show, because it's nice when we talk about the latest news in the Star Wars galaxy, but it's even better when you have the guy that wrote some of these stories on the show, which leads us into our next topic here on Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 60, because we have a report that there is an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie on the way, and it's going to be made for the Disney streaming service.
Not a movie.
I'm sorry, I said movie, but I said series.
Yeah.
Oh, John, you know what? You're the one that broke this story, so tell us what's going on in this report, bud.
All right, so I know there's been a lot of rumors the past week about everyone getting their own Star Wars story.
Oh, yeah.
The Oprah memes were out there, right? Everyone gets a series, right? But the one that we got info on seems pretty strong. I think this is lock solid. Obi-Wan Kenobi series for the streaming service Disney Plus. I've been told it should be upwards of 6 episodes. It was originally supposed to be a movie, but going back to what we said about Solo, the returns on Solo's box office made Bob Iger change the game. And that whole quote, I don't know if you remember him last year saying, "We're going to rethink how we approach things." That puts a little more clarity on what that quote meant, because if you may remember, Ewan McGregor was at the Solo premiere. They even sat him next to Ray Park. And they were going to do a big announcement about Kenobi after Solo opened. And then when the returns came in, they were like, "Oh, got to pump the brakes. Sorry, Ewan. You can shave the beard for now." Then they retooled this thing. And it looks like we're going to get a streaming service series out of it. So I don't know when that's going to come out, but or when it's going to be announced. But as far as I understand it, I've never put out a report that had more concrete sourcing on this. I'll just leave it at that. I think this thing's pretty solid, in my opinion.
So is Ewan McGregor still attached to this project, John?
Yes, he's been on board since day one. So it's funny, we all joke about all those times he gets interviewed, and it could be about, a car dealership, and someone will ask him about, are you going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi again? And he always says, "I would love to do it," right? And that was his stock answer. The reason why he gave that stock answer is because he really felt that. He really wanted to do it. And I honestly think they're bringing this story and they were making this thing because of Ewan McGregor.
Cool.
He was one thing out of the prequels everybody universally loved. And I truly think this project is one of those projects. We're talking about the divide in fanship. I think this is one of those projects that everyone can rally around the flag and unite over.
See, as a
no-brainer.
fan, I am super stoked about this because instead of getting 2 hours of content, we could be getting up to 6 hours of content, which is even better. So I'm pumped.
Yes.
What I think about, I guess, the potential of now doing, if you like what David just suggested, as many as 6 hours, where you probably just had a 2-hour movie that had a script written. And we reported that. Well, we didn't report it. I think you guys reported it, and we just talk about it. That's how this usually works out. But how there was like a director already tabbed, and they were writing the script. And so how do you stretch that out from 1 2-hour movie to 6, maybe 1 hour long episodes? Are you keeping Obi-Wan on Tatooine the entire time? Does he go off planet? Does he duel Vader? Was there a second duel with Vader that we don't know about? Is it just him picking off Tusken Raiders? John, do you have any... You know, like, do you have any inclination, or do you just... Maybe you don't have any insight there, but at least what would you hope to see in this series?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the details on it. I don't even know if they... I was told that the script is great, right? And it wasn't Alan Horn who told me that, so maybe there is some truth to it. But, you know, I don't know. I think one thing that I think is a missed opportunity, and I've talked about this on the Resistance broadcast, is that they have stressed at Lucasfilm they're not going to retell a story twice in canon, which concerns me because I think it was a big missed opportunity to have Obi-Wan and Maul have that fateful duel in Rebels. As great as it was, you had Stephen Stanton, who I love, do the voice, and you had Sam Witwer as Maul. I get that. But imagine being able to have that in live action and have Ray Park once again versus Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi. If they were ever going to break that rule and re-show us something twice, which I think they may anyway, because they may do K2SO and Cassian meeting again.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
You do it. You do it in the Kenobi series, and you make it the most epic lightsaber duel we've ever seen.
I agree with that, but would it be more epic to change that duel, or just keeping it the 3 moves that Rebels showed? Because I know that some people were upset by it, but it was almost poetic that Maul tried to beat Kenobi with the same move that he beat Qui-Gon Jinn on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that is kind of funny. It's like when you pay for a UFC fight and it ends in like 3 seconds. You're like, man, why did I pay for that?
Yeah, I'd like to see a more mid-aged Obi-Wan.
Or they could do, I guess they could do, they match up again, and it was before he killed him or something. I mean, there's a lot they can do. I'm a little uneasy about the Vader, if them fighting again. I like them not meeting again until A New Hope after Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
But I would love it if Vader and Palpatine popped up. I mean, I stress this often. I'm a big Ian McDiarmid Palpatine fan. I don't know if you guys are, but you know, the guy's in his mid-70s now. He can still play the Emperor. He has said many times he would love to do it again. Get him in here somewhere. If he fits in a timeline, get the Emperor in the mix, even if it's just for a minute or two. Just sprinkle him back in there.
Just think about how they would do that, though, because in A New Hope, or the original Star Wars, whatever you want to call it, the sense is that Tarkin, for example, hasn't heard about Obi-Wan Kenobi in a very long time. But that doesn't mean the Emperor hasn't heard about Obi-Wan Kenobi for a very long time. And we know that in Charles Soule's Vader comic, there was a list of Jedi that escaped Order 66. And so it would be interesting to know if, you know, Vader is still on this pursuit, or maybe we get to see the Inquisitors at some point with this movie, and
that would be cool.
They make an appearance on Tatooine. Maybe Obi-Wan hasn't shut himself off from the Force when we see him go back into the desert there at the end of Revenge of the Sith. Maybe he has to like learn that skill. I feel like you could do some really cool exploration of how the Force works with this series. So I'm really excited about it. I'm also excited for the fact that, you know, as many as 6 episodes, calling that a limited series, you know, we've learned, whether it's talking about The Mandalorian or the Cassian Andor series, that limited series has a different meaning than it did a few years ago. This, to me, seems like the more traditional sense of you're getting these 6 episodes maybe, but that's it. And that's gonna be the story. And I think getting a 6-hour-long, potentially, story is a pretty good reward for the fans.
Yeah, I agree. And they could always leave it. You know, you have a 20-year gap there. And this is all speculation here, but, you know, if they want to chunk that right in the middle there, the 10 years in the middle, So you have like a 9-year-old Luke Skywalker, and you could have a kid playing Luke, and you could have him interact with Obi-Wan, and not hammer it too home, but just sprinkle him in there a little bit.
Yeah.
You get the guy who played Owen and the actress who played Beru back. I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. And then if you end on those 6 episodes, you still have 10 years there if you do want to finish it up with a movie, or or what have you. They will leave themselves breathing room to do stuff. It just makes sense from a movie and TV series making type of deal.
I like the idea of bringing back Maul. David, who is the name of that actor again who played
Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton.
And he's
Joel
said
Edgerton,
before that he wants to come back.
Yeah, that was like a year ago. He was in the news and he was saying how he wanted to come back to Star Wars. Didn't you have you wanted him to be like a drug moisture farmer?
Yeah,
thing.
like a Breaking Bad type thing, moisture meth farming.
Yeah, we thought that would be a good. Be a good spin-off series for the at the time untitled Disney streaming service.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
That's our take.
Sitting in his sand, with his blue milk extractors, and
it was a real stretch.
I'd sign me up. I'd watch it. Right? Let's throw it on AMC and do it. But one other thing I wanted to say about Kenobi real quick.
Yeah.
Where they can also work here is knowing that Obi-Wan Kenobi is a pathological liar. So they can retcon things and just say, oh, yeah, Kenobi lied about that too. So when he said, I haven't gone by the name Obi-Wan Kenobi since before you were born, they could just be like, you know what? He lied about that too. So I love being able to use Obi-Wan Kenobi as a pathological liar as a way to retcon stuff. I'm a big fan.
Well, he's only a liar from a certain point of view, John. I think you should be a little bit more respectful.
Correct. Yeah.
I want to know what those joining us in the live chat think about our discussion so far, especially here with this new Kenobi series. If you're catching us on the rewind, I want you to comment down below underneath the video so that way we can continue our conversation, our Star Wars conversation. Again, it's episode number 60. So glad John is with us right now. Real quick, though, do we have someone talking in the live chat?
Yeah, John's saying whatever they do, I presume for this Obi-Wan series, there must be lightsabers, and he's just really excited for 6 hours of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I agree, lightsabers 100%. You can never have enough lightsaber.
Do you think we'll get a lightsaber in the desert with Obi-Wan Kenobi in this limited series, John?
Oh yeah, you could lock that up.
I mean, he's in.
I'm not a big fan of the Attack of the Clones Braveheart scene where there's just like 5 billion lightsabers, but I do agree you need to get lightsabers in the mix at one point or another. So we'll see.
We'll take that. I think that was John Boffman in the live chat. So he's a proud Patreon supporter of BeyondTheBlastDoors. John and his wife Penny always appreciate you guys watching us on the live show every Sunday.
Got some shout outs to 90MF Comics and Ryan Bullock, who says this is great. 2 of my favorite podcasters collaborating together. Got Miss P, we got Marie Wilson. If you're watching right now, feel free to comment, talk to us, let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah, and if you haven't
I'll
already,
talk back.
If you haven't already, be sure you hit that thumbs up button. That helps us out a lot. Also, if you haven't already, maybe this is your first time checking us out. Welcome. Be sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the bell icon, so that way when we go live or we drop other videos, you're the first to know. And we mentioned that Ryan is in the chat, and can we shout him out, John? And I'm talking to you, John. Because we have like 3 Johns in this conversation now. But Ryan is like this super positive guy on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure that he has not missed a Friday, in like the last 2 years where he hasn't reached out and been like, hey, happy for his Friday, thinking you think you're great. Like, I want to shout that guy out because all he does is spread positivity.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, especially, Twitter, we joke. I talked to my brother yesterday about this. He's like, wait, Star Wars fans fight with each other? I'm like, you have no idea, man. You really have no idea. So when we have people like that do those types of things to try to unite people together, I think it's really cool. So Ryan, that is right. So yeah, good stuff. Keep it going. Keep that positivity going. Keep
Always
people
love
together.
it.
Star Wars is fun.
Star Wars is fun, and it's going to be very fun for Star Wars fans. In April, we'll have Star Wars Celebration. We just found out more incredible actors and actresses have been named to join us in Star Wars Celebration. Of course, it's the 2nd week in April this year. 5 days. They've expanded it to 5 days. It is, Wednesday through Monday now? Oh, I didn't do that math right.
Thursday, Friday, through, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Thursday through Monday.
I'm a mass comm student, or I was a mass comm student, so math was never the strength. But we got 2 big names and then a lot of other great names. They're all big, to be honest with you, especially if you're a fan of animation. Billy D. Williams and Alec Tudyk are the ones that kind of take the lead on this announcement, John. Really excited for Billy D to be back, because of course the assumption is he's back in 9.
Is this going to be his first public appearance promoting the film, being out in public since he got back in the swing of things with Star Wars?
I think so, John, right? Because all we've seen is him working out on Instagram, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're seeing him lifting weights and stuff. And I made a joke on Twitter. I was like, yeah, so there's going to be a scene where Lando literally just picks up the Falcon and throws it at somebody, and that's going to be his scene. I think it will. I think it will be. Billy D. Props to him, man. He's like 82, 81. But yeah, it'll be good to see him back in the mix in 9. I don't think he's going to be in it for that long, but it'll be cool to see him.
I think I heard a rumor he's got a cane, and I want to know what a Star Wars cane looks like.
I bet it's pimping.
Oh, look at Peter Mayhew, man. He has that lightsaber cane. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have. But like, what would
I have not? What?
Yeah, he's got a lightsaber cane. But I'm talking about like in movie.
Yeah, Peter Mayhew had a custom-made lightsaber cane. I think it looks like Luke Skywalker's Return of the Jedi lightsaber.
Yeah, it's a real.
Yeah.
David has just like completely checked out of this conversation.
Oh,
He's
that is badass. Look at that.
He likes it.
That is adorable.
Oh, you found it? Yeah, right.
So, what also do you think? And we'll go through a lot of these names because I mean, if you're a Rebels fan, if you're a Clone Wars fan, the list is pretty impressive on this latest announcement. We've had like 30 or 40 actors and actresses already announced, but we get Alan Tudyk, and there's a lot of speculation that it's going to be announced that we're going to see him at Star Wars Celebration to announce that K2SO will be back for the Cassian Andor series. But as you alluded to earlier, John, there is some concern because that would be possibly showing another moment in canon twice. We know how Cassian and K2 met in comics. I don't know if that comic worked for a lot of fans. I feel like because it happened in the comics, maybe there's a little bit more flexibility in recreating that moment. But, what's your take on the chance that we're going to get Alan Tudyk an announcement in connection with this Cassian Andor series?
Yeah, I think you'll see that. I believe they're setting up production of that, and I think that is going to might take place in the UK. I'm hoping to have more details on that this week on StarWarsNewsNet. But I think he will be in for sure. No brainer there. Anytime you can get an already established character that people love to draw people into a series, why wouldn't you? So no brainers are always things I check off.
What are you talking about?
In terms of, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that cane was real. I just shared it on the live chat for people watching. That is really cool.
He's still on the
it's a bit. We could do the whole talk on the cane, in my opinion. But Alan Tudyk, I think he will be back. In terms of the comic, I say this often, and people give me flack about it, but if we're being honest, a very small percentage of overall Star Wars fans read all the comics.
I would say that's accurate.
So that scene, to bring that to all fans' eyes, would be a very impactful scene on how they met, how maybe he reprogrammed him. Who knows? I think you got to do it. You got to break the rule there. We were just talking about how maybe they should break the rule about Maul and Kenobi. I think in this situation, you almost have to do it. So I'd be surprised if they didn't. But we'll see.
I feel like you can do that now with Rebels because let's be honest. I mean, the audience watching Rebels is a lot smaller than that overall number of fans. I would think that maybe Rebels has a few more eyes on it, right, than the comic books. But I think the same approach maybe can still apply. I think it's great. My one concern, it's not a concern, because I just got done saying how the rule could be broken. I think on the canon timeline, it says like within the same year, K2SO and Cassian met as the events of Rogue One took place. But Jesse's concern was the fact that they wouldn't be able to bring K2SO until like the very end of the series. But I feel like you're playing with as much as a year, so like what's the big deal? I mean, you could have him going on several adventures. You could have them meeting, them breaking into Imperial facilities. I just want to see Cassian be so... I want that gritty vibe that we got there at the start of Rogue One where he's killing his own informant. I want to see that, and I want to see the attachment develop between him and K2S2, how he takes this Imperial droid and really bonds with him. I think it'll be really cool.
I think that's got to be at the beginning of the series, because one thing, I mean, besides like lightsabers and space wizardry, it's the comic relief of the robots, the C-3POs that really kind of drive home, to me, what Star Wars is.
Right.
So I think you have to have K2SO come in really quick right off the bat. And, that could be part of the plot devices moving forward through the series is them building trust or them having to reprogram each other to, get on the same page.
We're also getting Freddie Prinze Jr., Taylor Gray. John, you got to be pumped because these are two big names when it comes to Rebels, but also anytime Taylor Gray shows up, you just got to wonder, like, could Ezra make a return in the very near future to maybe on camera? Because I think you could legitimize Gray playing Ezra in a live-action role.
Oh man,
Doesn't
that
like
is
the idea.
tough.
John does not like that idea at all.
I don't know. James Bainey on our podcast brings this up a lot. He's not sure about the transition from animated to live action for a lot of characters, and how that could work. You can go the other way, but sometimes going animated to live action is a little tough. I have to agree with him there. I do think Ezra's story is going to kind of end in the same way Rebels was formatted on animated. I think you have to bookend your story with its main format. So they're not going to show like, here's 4 seasons of animated Ezra, and now we're going to end it with a live action. I don't see that happening. But I think he will come back in some kind of streaming service type of thing with Thrawn. I think that'd be kind of cool. But Freddie Prinze Jr., I mean, if I get a chance to get a picture with the guy, or in the off chance I get him on the podcast, solely for the reason to show girls who didn't talk to me in high school, like, look at me now, okay? Freddie Prinze Jr., huh? How about that?
Way to show them, John. You really one-upped him. I think he's such a good, he's so great in that role. He made Canon feel believable, but also Freddie is one of these guys that's in the Star Wars galaxy that is such a diehard fan. And listening to him talk about the Force and conversations he would have with like Sam Witwer and with Dave Filoni, that just gets me amped to experience him in person. He seems like a really solid dude. And you did make the mention about live action, converting characters from animation to live action. Just last week we were talking about Ahsoka Tano. Do you have Ashley Eckstein play that character in live action, or do you just do like a CG recreation, kind of like Tarkin in Rogue One, and have Ashley do the voice animation? And neither option really sounds like the best. Maybe it is best for these characters to kind of live in that realm where they originated. Maybe that's best. Maybe that supporting what John said. We have a couple more people here on the list. I just want to mention a few of them. We have Anthony Forrest, who's going to be appearing. He was the stormtrooper that was mind tricked by Kenobi. And in A New Hope, we have John Morton. He's best known as Dak, the other half of the Snowspeeder team in Hoth. And we have Julian Glover, who played General Veers, and Michael Culver, who is Captain Nita. And pretty pumped just to meet those dudes if we got the chance, because they're like smaller roles, but like everybody knows General Veers. Like he was the most intimidating dude in control of the AT-ATs at the beginning of Hoth. Like, I found him more scary than Vader when I was younger.
Really?
Oh my gosh. This guy rolls up with all these walkers, and he's just blowing the Rebels look like they're just going to get their butts whooped. They got these cannons that can't penetrate the armor. They're all getting blown up. Stormtroopers are invading the base. I mean, that was a butt whooping for the Rebel Alliance. Not one of their best moments, So a really good slate. And then one more time, John, you guys are broadcasting, or you're at least recording on the podcast stage at Star Wars Celebration, right?
Yes. We don't know our day or time slot yet, unfortunately, but I'll keep you guys posted.
Is that frustrating to you, to be like going out there and not knowing what your schedule is supposed to be?
A little bit. I mean, I think there's been some shakeups over there in terms of that stuff. So I think it's been delayed a little bit, but it is a little frustrating. But right now we're just trying to just embrace the fact that we're going and we're honored to do it. And I joke, I'm like, well, whenever that 9 panel is scheduled, that's when our podcast is going to happen. There's going to be us in the room with
Sorry, buddy.
a lot of empty noise in the background.
Well, we're looking forward to checking you guys out. We hope that we can be present when you guys are recording. I'm not really quite sure logistically how that is all going to work, but if we could be there, we'd love to listen to you guys do that from Celebration. We'll be there. We got some plans about some events that are happening at Celebration that we'd like to cover. But I think right now the plan is we'll have at least someone there all 5 days. But of course, I mean, as far as following the day-by-day events, we know that StarWarsNewsNet.com is the first place that we're going to go to get that look, and then we'll discuss, and that's usually how this relationship works. And we always appreciate what you guys do over at StarWarsNewsNet.net because it's always pro. You guys don't put anything out there unless you have it vetted or you have it on good faith. And again, that positive conversation. I do have one last point here to make in Real Talk, and we'll just make it very quick because there's a new episode of Resistance that comes out tonight. It's called The Disappeared. We're just in this point now with this show where we're finally getting some interaction with the First Order. We're starting to see the events of Force Awakens play out. The description that we have here is the First Order is affecting life on the platform, talking about Colossus. Races are being canceled. People are randomly disappearing. You have Kaz and Torah. They successfully free the First Order prisoners, but they don't realize their actions will put their crew in jeopardy. We'll get that tonight. John, is this show... How closely have you been watching this show? Because it seems like now, at least for us, kind of like the older spectrum of the viewing audience, this is the time to watch the show because it's finally having an effect on the main timeline. It's starting to get interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't very amped going into Star Wars Resistance when it was first coming out. I'll admit that. But I had to write the reviews for it on StarWarsNewsNet.com. So I started watching it by that default. And then I started enjoying it more and more as we kind of cruised along. You went through your exposition where you got to meet the characters. And I feel like they really ended on a great note at the end of the first half where you kind of see that Kaz maybe growing up a little bit. Even you had Leia call him by his full name, Kazuda. So you're like, okay, this guy's starting to learn something. He's not falling around like Bugs Bunny all the time.
Right.
I was getting a little tired of that, but I understand it's a kid's show, so I completely get that. But I agree with you. We are going up against some serious events now, and I'm curious how they animate that and kind of give the different perspective of during the same timeline. That intrigues me a lot. I think they are going to end on a big bang, so to speak, with the destruction of the Hosnian system. And curious where they kind of take season 2, because then we're entering TLJ, post-TLJ era, and how they're going to do that up against the events we've yet to see with episode 9. So it's all very intriguing to me, and I'm excited to see how they round it out.
I'm really thrilled about it because I mentioned this on our show a few times is, again, the payoff for me is investing so much time in watching all these shows and reading the comics and the books is I want to witness main events in the canon timeline, but from the outside, when this happens with Hosnian Prime, what's happening over here in the galaxy? And so to be able to have like that third-person view of the destruction of Hosnian Prime, like I'm really excited for that, to watch that from the perspective of Colossus and seeing how people react, because when we're watching the movie, we're so hyper-focused on the people that are right there in that scene.
Yep.
But there's like a whole galaxy that there's going to be repercussions for. So it's going to be exciting to see that play out. And yeah, it will be exciting to see where season 2 goes with this, because that was announced a few months ago, and seeing where this series goes post Force Awakens into that Last Jedi territory, it could be really thrilling, and it would be really cool if we could get maybe some Kylo Ren in the show as well. I don't know how likely that is. Of course, John's alluded to the fact that he thinks that episode 9 is the last time that we'll see Adam Driver in there for Kylo Ren, at least with the movies for now. But that's, I guess, what I'm looking forward to the most. This show was made, there's no doubt, for like the 9 and 10-year-old. I don't feel like Clone Wars started out this juvenile. I don't feel like the Rebels started out this juvenile. And that's okay, because not every Star Wars product is made for the Star Wars fan, but we can all find our enjoyment out of anything. And that's the great thing about this is an art, right? That it's all subjective, and it's all how it responds to you. So, with that said, because I'm out of breath, John, you got any more gold, any more magic? I mean, I'm sweating over here. We got really deep in the Star Wars conversation, and I'm just so glad that you joined us, man. I hope you don't regret it.
I do not regret that. I had a good time.
Victory.
Good.
It's always a good time to talk to fellow Star Wars fans. So anytime I get the opportunity to do so, I am down. So let's keep the conversation going into what should be a very jam-packed, news-filled, and excited 2019, possibly, arguably, the biggest year for Star Wars ever.
Agreed. Going into Star Wars Celebration, it's Episode 9, it's The Mandalorian, it's Jedi Fallen Order. Those are the 3 titles that will be out there with Triple Force Friday. They announced that in October.
Yep.
And so, those seem to be the main storylines going into Celebration, and it's going to be exciting to follow those storylines and others with you, John, with everyone over there at Star Wars Newsnet, with James and Lacey on the live show. And real quick, though, John, I'm so sorry. I forgot about this. We were contacted by one of your co-hosts. Do we have that tweet, Jordan? Yeah, we got some questions that we need to follow up on here, because let me tell you, it meant so much to me that you agreed to do this show. And I asked your co-host if they would supply me with questions for the fan comic. At the end of every show, we take our Twitter questions and we shout out people who check out the show. And so what Lacey did here was, and Lacey and I have started having some communication here in the last couple of weeks. Really awesome person. She seems to be like maybe one of the most well-connected people in the Star Wars galaxy, and she's got a wicked sense of humor. We both love wine. But she has here some questions that she wants us to ask you. And the tweet reads, "Hi, John, big fan. Excited for the year ahead in Star Wars. It's going to be amazing. What are your thoughts on Reylo or Bendemption? Is it Endgame? And then also, how do you feel, and take this with a grain of salt, Chewie dies in episode 9?
Jeez.
Do you love her right now so much?
That's vintage Lacey right there, let me tell you. How do I feel about Reylo? I think everyone, if you listen to me on the Resistance broadcast, you know how I feel about Reylo, but in a respectful way, of course, as always. Bendemption, interesting. Again, it all comes down to execution. JJ, if he knocks it out of the park, it's his story to tell, not mine. So I'll accept it. I'm sure I'll like it.
In JJ, we trust.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, Return of the JJ. But I don't know if I want to see a similar arc to Vader, because then it's what was this all about then? Why did we tell this story? So that's the only reason why I want something different. And I have one question for you, Lacey. How dare you?
We expect
Chewie dying? Get out of here. Chewie's not dying. Jonas has bills to pay. He's going to be in the suit a lot more in the future.
I would say the next 40 years, there's a good chance of it. I just love how much fun we were just able to have with that, and I would love. And I think this was implied, but I would love to see Lacey. I'd love to see James come on the show in the near future. I'd love to have one of you guys back on right before Star Wars Celebration if we can make it happen, because you guys are a fun crew. And we're thankful for you guys every day. You guys are on top of this. You make it fun. You have interesting observations on the Star Wars galaxy. And we get to do fun things like this. Like 2019 is a fun time to be a fan, not just for all the content we get, but we get to interact like this. It's a pretty cool time to be a fan.
It certainly is. And I want to thank you guys for having me on. You guys are a lot of fun, too. You guys keep it positive. So I appreciate what you guys do as well. And thanks for all the kind words.
Appreciate it, John.
I'm just really excited because, David, I'm not a big podcaster guy. And David, came to me 2 years ago and he's like, hey, listen to this. I'm like, no, it's a podcast. No, you need to listen. And that's kind of what got me interested in maybe doing the podcast with him. So you guys are like the reason why I'm here today.
Whoa.
Which is pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cool to be here with John having this conversation.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I didn't know
David,
that was a moment that convinced
man.
you.
That means a lot. Appreciate it.
I thought you were just doing this because you were my friend, but apparently John is the reason why we're doing the show together.
Well, okay, so combination. It's like a mixing bowl. You got to stir all the ingredients together.
All right, well, John, if we haven't sucked up enough, I guess you have to come on the show again now for a second time.
Yeah, no, I'll be glad to come back anytime, guys. Thanks so much.
John, thank you so much. We've been doing this goodbye for 5 minutes, but we just really appreciate it. John Hoey with StarWarsNewsNet.com, also one of the co-hosts of the Resistance broadcast. You can catch that every Monday and Thursday, right, John?
That's right. Mondays and Thursdays. The base is open. Come on in.
Yeah, baby. He gave us an extra 30 minutes. We're so appreciative for it. Have a great rest of your Sunday, John. May the Force be with you, buddy.
May the Force be with you guys. Take care.
We're going to step aside for 20 seconds here on Beyond the Blast Doors Live. That was a great interview. It went a little longer than expected, but a lot of fun. Worth it. Every minute of it. And he said he didn't regret it, which is great, because right before we went live today, I was like, John, my goal for this is for you not to regret coming on this show. That if we can just have that checked off the list, we can guarantee that you'll be back. That's a victory for me. And he's like, you're gonna have to really mess it up for me not to want to come back. And I'm like, just watch, John. Just watch.
We might impress you.
It's like we can see him, we can hear him. Okay, we're going to go. Let's do this. So we're going to step aside 20 seconds. We'll be right back with abbreviated rest of the show here on Beyond the Blast Doors Live.
All wings report in. Brand new Beyond the Blast Door collector pins are now in stock. Help spread the word about the Beyond the Blast Door Star Wars conversation by picking up a brand new exclusive show pin. Pins are only $8. Order and pay online at BeyondTheBlastDoors.com. Movies, TV, comics, toys, cosplay. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.
We're back here on Beyond the Blast Doors, episode number 60. Again, just big thanks to John being patient with us. Sunday is family day for a lot of folks, and I just said I want to take the least amount of your time as possible. He gave us like an extra 25, 30 minutes. I mean, the guy's awesome. So once again, thanks to John and the whole crew over there at the Resistance broadcast, StarWarsNewsNet.com. Just all quality people. Really appreciate it. Pages, Pixels, Pieces. This is a segment that's brought to you by our proud sponsor, the Fantasy Shop in Maplewood, Missouri. Proud to have our local comic book shop, our official sponsor. Comics, collectibles, toys, Magic the Gathering, and board games. Fantasy Shop in St. Louis, proudly serving St. Louis since 1981. Not a whole lot, to be quite frank, this week. Want to make sure that you knew that Star Wars Solo is Star Wars Story number 5 of 7, and Star Wars Adventures 18 came out this past week. I thought the Adventures 18 was a little bit more interesting. In case you might have missed it, Beyond the Panel, issue number 7 was this Thursday. Did it live with Patrick Covey, who's a good friend of the show and willing to test out our audio connections whenever we want to randomly go live. But he joined me on the show. It was a lot of fun. I think it shows the potential of where we can go with that show. But one of the things that he thought was the most interesting, and I think he's right, for the first time, I think the IDW, the Star Wars Adventures comic, is more captivating than Solo. Solo has stellar art. Solo's art is incredible. But here in Star Wars 18, we get the story from Duquesne, and I'm trying to think here. The way it plays out in this short story, and it's weird because like the IDW, the Star Wars Adventures books are like 2 stories. So like there's this like main line that didn't really do much for me. It was like Jar Jar Binks and Padme running around. But then they had the second one where it's an older Han Solo and Duquesne steals the Millennium Falcon. So we get that reference from Force Awakens about how the Millennium Falcon changed so many hands, and it's the story of how Duquesne stole the Falcon from Han. He ends up on Takodana. He has a change of heart, and then like the comic ends with him wanting to join the Resistance. So it's kind of a cool, backstory of that little reference we got in Force Awakens, which, like, it's not like it doesn't change a lot of things. It's not really pivotal to your understanding of Star Wars or the events of Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. But it is kind of interesting to find out how Han Solo could get the ship stolen from him. And it's kind of like he just meets Duquesne randomly, joins the crew, and he's like, yeah, just watch my ship. I'll be right back. Duquesne steals the ship, and he goes and has all these great adventures. And so it's kind of like, it's, that story is like kind of feels like the Diet Coke version that's acceptable for the kids. I'd like something a little bit more with that. I mean, but of course, it's easy for me. Like, I want this, but they don't make Star Wars for me. So it's all good. But those were the comics last week. This coming week, you get Afra 29, 2 stellar covers. These greatest moment covers you're looking at on your left side of the screen, each one is hit.
I absolutely love that Dooku Vader cover.
And this is, the Dooku Vader cover. But this is here for Dr. Afra. This is Dooku dueling with Yoda, and it's kind of reminiscent to me of the. It's somewhat reminiscent of that panel that we just got in the Dooku single shot, where Dooku and Yoda are dueling while Dooku's still a Jedi. Now, of course, that foreshadows the duel they have on Geonosis as Sith First Jedi. So those are the comics out this week. And let's go ahead and take a look now. Real quick mention, Anakin Skywalker coming out on Battlefront 2 is what we're going to be dealing with here in the next couple of days. Comes out next week. And so, we'll go ahead and show the image of that. And we don't really have anything more to say about it. It's just the fact that you're going to be able to play as Anakin Skywalker here shortly. I'm sure when Jesse's back with us next week, he will be able to break that down a little bit more. That said, let's go ahead and jump into Stash It or Blast It real quick, just because we're going to try and go Hyperforce. Thanks again to Hyperspeed. Words are tough after an hour-long interview that just refueled your passion for Star Wars. Anyways, thanks to the Fantasy Shop for doing that. Stash It or Blast It. Here we go. It was the story of the TV show here in Star Wars because Obi-Wan Kenobi, that story broke there on StarWarsNewsNet.com. And then everybody was starting to get a TV show. So I've got a couple of TV show pitches for you, and you can stash it or blast it. Okay, David? First things first, a young Princess Leia TV show.
I feel... I'm going to blast this, and here's why. Because I feel like it would be very, very good to have a TV show that centers around a female strong lead character. If they're going to give me that, I would rather see an Ahsoka TV show after she leaves the Jedi Order than a Princess Leia.
Even though we just got done talking with John about how that usually doesn't translate the best.
Yes. Because Leia's going to have some cool things, but a lot of it's going to be politically motivated. It's going to be more... conversation and back-talking, more what we got with the prequels, where I think if we have something more like an Ahsoka Tano, we would have more lightsabering type stuff.
I can go with that. I think one of the... I'm trying to think. I think it's the girl from Stranger Things that everyone talks about, her being a real good candidate to play a young Leia, and I think that could be really, really enjoyable. I'm trying to come up with her name real quick, and it's not coming up, unfortunately. I thought I had it saved, so that's a bummer. But I'm looking at her picture right now, and she looks like a spot image of Leia, so that could have worked. Oh, well.
So
Well,
are you going to stash it or are you going to blast
I'm
it?
going to stash it because I think it would work. I really love the Leia Princess of Alderaan book. The next one we have is Knights of Ren TV show. I'm going to stash this thing. I want a lot of exploration with these characters. I do think we're going to get them in 9. It would be really cool to see what their overall purpose was for, I mean, their existence, what their relation to Kylo is, their relation to Snoke. What's your take?
I would love to see it. I'm going to stash it. My question is it going to be them as the main characters? Are they going to be kind of anti-heroes? We've seen Star Wars kind of trying to turn Vader into an anti-hero lately. But I'm going to stash that one. How about you?
I'm going to stash it that I want it, blast it, because I don't think it's going to happen. And the person I was thinking of is actually from Game of Thrones, Maisie Williams. So my apologies for spacing on that name. And then getting the show wrong, too, because that was complete swing in the miss. This one is, I think, everyone's favorite, the Rose and Tico TV show, because this gets the most clicks, the most trolls, the most insults, the most negativity. This is everyone's favorite, I'm sure.
Rose and Paige, right?
Rose and Paige,
She
yeah.
and her sister.
Yes.
I don't need it. Blast it.
I'm going to blast it, not in the sense that I don't like the characters, because I think that Paige is really a lot of potential there. I think Rose is a great character as well, but I just feel like this would be too niche for TV. I could see them getting their own comic. I could see them getting a book. There has been a book. That's how I created this image here. So I'm gonna blast it. Darth Bane TV show, though. This probably is the one that's floating around the most, that I think most people are behind. People want to go back to the Knights of the Old Republic. People want to deal with the Sith. People want to investigate the rule of two. Darth Bane seems to be the best thing to do, so I'm going to stash it.
Did I tell you that I've been playing Knights of the Old Republic?
You told me that you downloaded it.
I played for 2.5 hours the other night, and then I forgot to save.
No.
Yeah. So I need to go replay that 2.5 hours again. But Darth Bane, stash it, take my money. Right now, I will buy my ticket today, whatever subscription service I need to do. How do I help crowdfund a Darth Bane television show? Let me know.
All right, well, that's our blaster stash it. I know that you guys have been playing along in the live chat as well, so we'll be sure to check that in a minute. But I want to go to get it on Stay on Target, just because we are kind of running long this week. But I think we've actually caught up. It's not so bad. We've been going a little over an hour now, but you know what? You have John able to come on the show. I don't think that you can just have him on for 25 minutes, and he seemed willing to keep going on that conversation. So it was great. Okay, here we go. Stay on target. Our favorite character in each live-action Star Wars movie.
David, I have to say, over the course of the 60 episodes that we've done this program, we've had a lot of fan comlink questions, a lot of stash or blasteds, a lot of hypothetical questions. This might be the hardest question I've had to come up with an answer to. Hands down.
Really?
Because you have to limit to just one. So who do you give your priority to, since some of these characters are in multiple movies? And then what if you accidentally stiff a character that you absolutely love because they were just outshined in one particular movie or another?
I think you have to decide. So what I did for this segment, and I saw this from Twitter for full transparency, okay? Because a lot of people have been sharing this exact prompt and then answering. And so some people have like certain criteria, like, I chose this character because they have the best quote, or they have the best action scene, they have the coolest ship, the best weapon, or they're the person I can identify with the most. I didn't give David any prompt, so we're just going to go through this, and we're going to say who and why, and hopefully we'll have different answers. We're probably going to cross over a few times.
I think looking through it, there's only one of them that we have the same answer for.
Well, let's start with the prequel trilogy. And we'll move forward. So, Phantom Menace.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Okay, I said Qui-Gon Jinn as well. Why did you say
He
Qui-Gon?
is the one character that left me wanting more.
And then you've gotten more.
Well, I mean, he kind of died, but...
Well, right.
Yeah, but a little bit. I mean, like comics and other stuff. But Liam Neeson, I want to see more of him.
Well, and, you know, truthfully, he was supposed to be in Revenge of the Sith, we learned. He was supposed to be in a scene where he appears to Obi-Wan, but he was, like, in a car crash or something. So they had to scrap the scene, which is, I think, ultimately why we got that scene with Yoda and Obi-Wan at the very end, where Yoda's like, oh, well, you know, he's learned a way to live beyond, or however that dialogue goes. For that reason, yes. Qui-Gon, yes. Qui-Gon had it right. He saw the imperfections of the Jedi Order, specifically the Council, and we saw that with Jodie Houser's single-shot Age of Republic comic. We're hopefully going to see more of that in Claudia Gray's novel coming out in April. That he he had a better understanding of balance with the Force. And I want to see that more explored because of what we got here in Phantom Menace. The guy's a great duelsman. You ultimately learn in the next movie that he is the apprentice of Dooku, now turned Sith. He's this accomplished Jedi. Just the tug and pull that he had with the Council, that now we know that he actually had an invite to join and he declined it. That's really interesting to me. I want to know the dynamics there. Why the Council was against Qui-Gon. What created that rift initially? Was it just because he's always been this stubborn? So that's pretty cool. And, of course, he was the one that sensed Anakin, which it becomes muddled now what this prophecy is. But, up until 2015, I just was under the assumption that ultimately Anakin was the chosen one and Qui-Gon was able to sense it in this young boy. So I went with Qui-Gon. Attack of the Clones, though, I went Mace Windu because Mace Windu is the guy from the very beginning who saw this young boy that Qui-Gon brought forward and was like, this boy is trouble. And not only does he say that he's worried about Anakin, maybe there's not trust in Anakin, of course, that's more alluded to in Episode 3. We get to see Mace Windu with that purple lightsaber take the battlefield. He is intense. This party is over. Cheesy, yes, but as an 11-year-old in the theater, I freaking loved it. It was cliche. It was not good writing. I loved it. And John mentioned earlier that he didn't like the Braveheart moment where it's all the Jedi running at it. But you know what? That's all I wanted to see growing up, was just like, I want to see what the Clone Wars are like. What is this war that Obi-Wan told Luke about so many years ago on Tatooine? Like, I want to know what that was like. And just to get some kind of interpretation of it, it's pretty cool.
I read somewhere, I may have read an interview with Sam Jackson, why he has the purple lightsabers because of that scene. George showed that to Sam Jackson, said, what do you think? And Sam Jackson said, where am I? And that's why they gave him the purple lightsaber, so he could see where he was.
And I love
and
that.
It stuck.
And I love that. That's the fun of Star Wars. And also knowing that Sam Jackson is like the biggest, like he's a huge Star Wars fan. So that's pretty cool. You did not pick Mace Windu.
I did not. And I 100% respect your opinion on Mace Windu because I almost went with that.
Okay.
However, I had to go down the dark side of the Force, and I picked Count Dooku.
Okay.
Because he's menacing, he's frightening, he's from the shadows, and then that scene with him and Yoda fighting just got me going.
I think Count Dooku is a great choice, especially if you've invested in the Clone Wars, because I think that Dooku was most underutilized in the story and best unserved by the story. Lucas needed a villain to replace Maul, which he said multiple times following. He wishes he would have kept him going because he didn't expect him to be so popular with the fans. So he throws in Dooku, and Dooku, you went from this really cool horned double lightsaber dueling guy to an old white man with, basically a fencing style.
But I like that. I mean, I liked both of them for different reasons.
But Dooku does prove to be a great challenge for a more mature Obi-Wan, for a young Anakin. He gets to escape from Yoda. We learn that he's a great duelsman. But when you watch Clone Wars, there's so much more to this character. Just what we saw with Jodie Hauser's one-shot on Age of Republic last week, there's so much more to this character, this Jedi turned Sith.
That's what I love about him.
He's part of the Lost 20. We've talked about that too.
100% why I like him is because he's a fallen Jedi. He got disenfranchised with everything going on in the Jedi Order and said, you know what? We're just going to go down this path today and try to help more people because this is what I think is right.
I think for Revenge of the Sith, as we move forward, and again, I want to know we want to know what your favorite character is for each of these movies. So if you're in the live chat with us, make sure that you are sharing those characters with us. If you're watching us on the Rewind, in the comments down below, honestly, even if you're joining us live, after this stream, come back to this video, please, and in the comments down below, put your list, your favorite characters of every movie. We want to know what you think. We want to continue the Star Wars conversation. I think it'd be a lot of fun to do that in the comments. So be sure you do that. So whether live or on the Rewind, comment down below with that list. Revenge of the Sith. I originally said Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I want to go to Palpatine. I want to switch it.
You're going to switch it. You're going to pick Palpatine.
You can stick with Palpatine too, because I think you and I had the same view on this movie.
This was a coin toss for me 100%, whether it was an Obi-Wan or Palpatine. And it is because of the actors who played them. I feel like I need to say Obi-Wan because of Ewan McGregor.
Yeah.
And we didn't give him a nod in the last two movies. So I feel like I need to pick that. But I also feel like this is where Ian McDiarmid was his best as Palpatine. This is where we get to see him fight. This is where we get to see him do his most manipulation, where he's the most menacing to me is in this movie. So for me, it is a coin toss between who I think is the better portrayal.
I think that when I think of Palpatine overall, I think he might be my favorite character overall in the saga because he's so well executed. You get Ian McDiarmid to do him, technically it wasn't him in Empire, but it was him in Return of the Jedi. And I think that was one of the good things changed about when George went back to do special editions, putting Ian McDiarmid in there for Empire. But then he gets to come back years later and do these prequel trilogies. And I just think that of all the character development that we've seen in the movies, Palpatine and his transition to Emperor and his ultimate fall was the best told story. And I think you're finally seeing that transition from corrupt politician to the Dark Lord of the Sith, pulling away the curtain and revealing himself to the galaxy. And now the galaxy is under the rule of a Sith. I thought that worked very well, and it's because the toss-up here is this. Ewan McGregor is my favorite part of the prequels, but my favorite scene in Star Wars is the opera scene in Revenge of the Sith.
Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
And you have basically Palpatine revealing himself to Anakin, and then all the speculation, because is it how involved is Palpatine in this plan? Is Plagueis still around? Is Anakin Skywalker naturally born as the will of the Force, or did Palpatine and Plagueis manipulate the Force to create life? You have all those great points. So for that reason, I'm going to have to go with Palpatine, but I think Obi-Wan Kenobi should be just taken off the table as a default, that he could be applied for any of those movies because his growth too and his impact was just extraordinary.
Hopping into the live chat before we get to Rogue One, we have a couple people chiming in. Marie Wilson, I don't know if you got the prompt right. This is your favorite character, not the least favorite. Her Phantom Menace is Jar Jar, her Attack of the Clones is Padme, and her Revenge of the Sith is Anakin.
Let her have her fun.
That would be at the bottom of my list, but I respect what you're doing there. Especially if you're a kid, you like Jar Jar because he's funny. Mando Furia, our buddy Jesse, who's out today, he says Qui-Gon for Episode 1, Episode 2 Django, go figure, and Episode 3 Obi-Wan.
I can't wait for when we get to the original trilogy because he's just going to go Boba and Boba for Empire and Return. And then even honestly, he could say Boba for A New Hope because of the special editions. We also have Gannon in here. Good to see Patrick Covey. Again, shout out to him if you haven't watched it already. Issue number 7 of Beyond the Panel. But he's in there saying that he didn't even know about the Lost 20 until I think he's talking about Ken Napzok from Collider Jedi Council, brought up a few weeks ago. I didn't know about the Lost 20 until a couple of months ago when it was brought up in a comic book. The Lost 20 is the list of the Jedi Masters who left the Jedi Order.
And they weren't all at once. It's over the entire multi-thousand-year span of the Jedi Order.
And in the expanded universe, there was a comic book series where Anakin comes back to the temple and he comes into Jocasta Nu, I think it was, or maybe it might have been a different Jedi. I don't think it was Jocasta Nu, but he comes and encounters a Jedi and he's like, well, I'm part of the Lost 20. It's the Lost 21 now. And the Jedi's like, well, no, because you were never a Jedi Master. And then Vader goes into rage mode and just slaughters because he doesn't like being reminded that he never made it to the rank of Master. But the Lost 20 is really interesting, and we're actually trying to do a video on it, breaking down all the members, but we just don't know anything. All we know is that their busts are the ones that line the library in the Jedi Temple. So just want to say thanks to everyone joining us in the live chat. If you haven't already, be sure you hit that thumbs up button. Hit that bell if you haven't already. Let's talk Solo though. What's your favorite character?
Chewie.
Is that why?
I love Chewie in general.
Is it weird though that Chewie looks the oldest in Solo and the youngest in The Last Jedi?
Not really.
Okay.
One of the things that I love about this portrayal of Chewie is just how gritty and ferocious and really untamed, I guess is how I'd phrase it. He's throwing people on their heads and snapping their necks and just really being a violent alien.
Which is different from what we've seen based on the original trilogy because he kind of just stands there and then you always hear about, but you've never seen a Wookiee pull the ears off a Gandalf.
And now we have, and that's pretty cool.
And it's pretty great. I think Chewie is a great pick. I think we're gonna get a lot more Chewie because we got Giannis Satamo around. There's a lot more capabilities that characters gonna have now because Jonas is he's an athlete. He's a former basketball player. The guy's gonna be able to do a lot of cool stuff. My favorite sequence with Chewie in Solo is them on the train and going around. But I think Lando for me is my favorite, and people might say that that's an easy grab. But I really enjoy. There is no glitch in a connection between what we got from Donald Glover as Lando as a young to what we get with Billy D. Williams. Like, it's perfect continuity. I sometimes think that he's a clone of Billy D.
I can 100% believe that is the same character.
That's Lando. That's Lando. And I'm hoping that we get more. There is a rumor that there's a Lando Kira series in the works for Disney Plus. That's just a rumor. But I'd be okay with more Donald Glover as Lando. I was hoping to get a Solo too. But I'm going to go with Lando on that one. Rogue One, I'm going to go with Draven, David Straven. He is the rebel commander that goes to Jin. Who are you? Like, he's like the real condescending guy. But I think he's really a cool, like, visual character. I wish I looked like him. I think he's a good looking dude.
He's the commander guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I just had to Google him.
He's part of one of my favorite scenes in Rogue One. I wanted to pick something that was like different because I felt like a lot of people could go to like Admiral Raddus or Cassian or K2S2, but I want to go with Dravitz because he's part of maybe the best musical moment of that movie where he's there. They take off from Yavin 4. They go fly around that one temple, and it's the original theme that kind of starts to swell. And I feel like here's a guy like just in the middle of the war, and at the time, I thought Draven was this guy that we were getting in Rebels, and I thought that was going to be the ultimate reveal that Callus was actually Draven, and I was going to lose my mind because I was like, at the time, I don't think I knew or we knew that like Hera was going to get a shout out in the movie, that we were going to see the ghost, and so I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually going to connect the cartoon with
the live action
movie. But then we also got Saw Gerrera, but also it wasn't Callus. Callus actually goes off and lives out of bromance. So that's my answer, and I'm sticking to it. Dang it.
I'm going to pick director Krennic.
I knew you were going to do this, and that's fine.
I love Orson Krennic 100%.
It was a toss-up for me, dude. He's so good. He's so good, and he's like that maniacal villain that he's just a bad dude, and he's just trying to do his job.
But that's what I like. He's trying to do his job. Exactly. He's not trying to set out for genocide. He's not trying to set out for personal reasons. He wants to do good at his job to get a promotion, 100%. And I can respect that.
Marie is in the live chat, and she's like, Raddus without a doubt. And I'm so with her on that. So with you. I can't type and talk at the same time, apparently. I can't really multitask. But no, I think Raddus is a great one. I think Krennic is the best. I think Krennic has the coolest ship. Of all the Imperial baddies we've gotten so far, I think I like his shuttle the most. So I think those are really solid character choices so far.
I'm really interested in the next 3 movies, David. We're getting into the original trilogy.
Yep.
And I know that you have a very, very big history of loving these movies because of the experiences you've had with your father. So I'm curious to see who your favorite picks are for A New Hope, Empire, and Return.
So for A New Hope, it's wrong on the show notes.
Okay.
It is most definitely Luke Skywalker.
I figured that was probably what you were going to say.
Because I think any young kid can, boy or girl, you don't know, like you're growing up of age, you want adventure, you think you're indestructible, you want new opportunity. So how I interpret Luke's position in the galaxy and in the story has evolved as I've gotten older. Really changed when I learned about the hero's journey as a freshman in Mr. Denoyer's English class. And I'm like, this is Star Wars. And he's like, actually, the Iliad did this a few thousand years before. Okay, I get it. So, but like Luke is that character that I identify with. I think a close second would be Han, though, because he's just like the cool looking, funny guy.
And he shot first.
He shot first, David. And he ultimately gets the girl, which is pretty cool. So, but I'd have to go with Luke just because of how much my perception of that character has evolved as I've gotten older. It's just first started out, I want to get a lightsaber. And then it's, well, I want to go on an adventure. Oh, I don't really know where I am in this world. I want to have a better meaning. I want to have a more value to this world than what maybe other people think I'm worth. And it just continues to change. And I think that's beautiful. Not that I'm trying to say like what my view is beautiful. I just think that the power of great storytelling, the device of the hero's journey is pretty cool. What's your pick?
So like 10-year-old David Gilbert would have said R2-D2.
Okay.
Hands down. Okay. Because I love R2-D2. I love his beeps. I love his bloops. I love his creeps and sweeps. I love R2-D2. Adult David Gilbert would probably say Obi-Wan Kenobi because I like the old wise Jedi wizard.
You don't get a lot of screen time with Alec Guinness in that first movie.
But the screen time that he does have is impactful. It's worth it. He's there for a reason, not just to show his pretty face.
Alec Guinness and his ability to be Obi-Wan Kenobi, to me, makes the Force the mystical force that it is. You know what I'm saying? Because he shows up at first, he's just this kooky old man in a cloak.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start learning about the lightsaber, the Force, the Clone Wars. He has to go to, Alderaan to meet the princess. But then he does that mind trick, on that stormtrooper.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing him just use the lightsaber for a moment in the cantina. And then you just go through every moment of his. The Force trick on the stormtroopers at the Death Star. The fact that when he's dead, he's still able to communicate with Luke. That's a mysticism that just was like so incredibly cool.
Without that character, this would not be an entertaining story, and this would not be a 40-year-old franchise worth multi-billions of dollars.
Yeah, I can dig that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on Empire?
Empire. Oh, Yoda. I think I may have shared with you on the show before, my first exposure was when I was at Thanksgiving at my Aunt Marilyn's house, and my cousins are also nerds, and they had Empire Strikes Back on the TV, and I was like, whatever, I was a kid, I was playing, and then I walk in, and there's this little green puppet on TV, and he's talking funny, and he's making funny noises, and, eating Luke Skywalker's food, and that is the moment I fell in love with Star Wars in second grade.
See, I like Yoda in that scene for the reason that he's completely messing with Luke. It is not that
He's
Yoda,
kind of a jerk.
Yoda's not kooky. He is messing with Luke. He is well aware why Luke is there. I mean, that's my headcanon, is the fact that he knows that why Luke is there, and he knows how this is going to play out. Like, I think he has that ability. I don't think he has like foresight like Quinlan Vos, but I think he's kind of able, like he says in the movies, the Force sometimes allows you to see in the future, but your actions can manipulate that. I'm paraphrasing. And so that's why I liked Yoda, is because maybe he was like 900-something years old, but that dude, he was there in isolation waiting for this moment, and he just was hoping that the kid would be strong enough to try and go after Vader. So I thought that was really cool. When I think about Empire Strikes Back, though, I have to go with Luke again because I'm boring. No, because how cool is it the first time you saw Empire Strikes Back and he's in the Wampa Cave and you see his lightsaber got thrown all the way over there and like he puts his hand out and you're like, what? And then you start to see the twitch of the saber hilt and then it which, by the way, they actually shot that in the reverse motion. So he's actually tied upside down and they had him throw the saber and that shot is actually played backwards for the force effect. Isn't that cool?
Really?
Yeah. Isn't that sweet? So they had to record it backwards in a way, and then they played it out backwards. I don't know. It was pretty cool. Fun fact. But when I talk about how like my evolution, the understanding of Luke and my ability to relate to and empathize with him, that is the pivotal movie because now he's starting to learn how to manipulate the Force himself. He is learning how to use it. He's displaying a lot more wisdom now, which you might be like, well, when he's on Dagobah, he's kind of whiny with Yoda. Yeah, but there is progress, like the ability for him to concentrate in the cave. He gets there, he survives Vader. But there is like some closure there when he's on the Falcon escaping Cloud City. He is acknowledging, he's just going to take... There's no hesitation. The moment now he knows that Vader is his father, he accepted as truth. At least that's the impression I get from watching those movies. And it's the character goes up in wisdom levels like 10,000-fold. Because he's got a new direction now. It's not about killing Vader and destroying the Empire. It's about saving his father, which sets up all of what we get in Return of the Jedi. Speaking of Return of the Jedi, I think Vader's my favorite character.
You want to talk about a movie that I think significantly decreased in enjoyment after the special editions? It's Return of the Jedi.
Why do you say that?
I don't like the majority of the changes they made. I don't like the extra songs, that dance routine in Jabba's palace. I don't like changing the Yub Yub song. I don't like Hayden Christensen being there at the end.
I thought, but you know what doesn't change is Vader. And I think that's the most dynamic character in the movie because, of course, you have the complexities of Luke having to now get his father, save his father, and have that redemption story play out. But you're talking about Vader who has gone from this innocent boy on Tatooine to being this Padawan learner who feels held back from his master, then not having the respect of the council, to trying to find respect somewhere else, so he turns to the dark side, trying to save the one he loves. You have about a 20-year span where he's doing nothing but killing and hunting and ruining people's lives. And then...
Protecting the galaxy,
He comes back face to face.
The Empire did nothing wrong.
Right. But he comes back face to face with his child. No, this is like the last thing that... when he looks at Luke, I think my assumption is he's thinking of Padme. And to see him now go from that scene on Endor where he's like, "It's too late for me, son," and then going to the Death Star, and like it all he made it happen. He eventually turned, and was it the fact that he was watching his son get electrocuted like viciously? Maybe. I mean, maybe that's a sick guy. Like, how far do you have to go to turn somebody? You know, like you did an Ancestry.com thing and you found out about your origins. You know, like I didn't have to electrocute. You know.
Right.
Somebody, I mean, I don't know. That's a really bad point. I'm getting off a tangent. The point here being is that I think Vader is the star of that movie, and I think Return of the Jedi gets a lot of flack. I don't think a lot of people look at that movie as exciting or as thrilling as the first two in the original trilogy. My dad says it's its favorite.
It was my favorite.
And I think it's...
Until the special edition changes.
And maybe that's because of Vader. But your favorite character ticks me off. I think you're full of crap.
Well, so I wrote down Wicket on the show notes.
You're such a jerk. You did write Wicket. I don't have
Yes.
to. Marie Wilson says that Wicket is her favorite Return of the Jedi character.
You go, girl. See, we're on the same page.
I'm so mad at you. You can think whatever you want, Marie, but he's like...
What's wrong
right
with
next-
Wicket? Listen, he's cute. He's adorable. He has sticks and rocks to take on the Empire. My choices were him, or do you remember the scene when Luke kills the Rancor in Jabba's palace, and that guy with like the helmet, no shirt, you know, just goes up and starts crying? I liked him too.
I do like John's point about Vader. Real quick, though, he says that he doesn't like that Vader says no now as he tosses the Emperor down in the special edition version. He just wished he would have grabbed him, just grabbed Palestine, and then he corrects himself and says he meant Palpatine, not Palestine, because Vader did not grab Palestine and throw it down the elevator shaft. Or
That'd be impressive. That'd be...
whatever shaft that was on the Death Star. Wicket, I think that Wicket is cute and adorable, and I'm more happy that the guy who plays Wicket is actually now like
Warwick
the most,
Davis?
Yeah, he's like the most beloved guy in Star Wars fandom now because he hosts every celebration, and he's appeared in the prequels. He was a guy on Solo. He was one of Enfys Nest's crew.
Yep.
So pretty solid pick there. I'm getting out of breath here. We are at Force Awakens, and your pick is.
My pick is not going to be Poe. Absolutely not Poe. Here's where I'm going to throw out Han Solo.
Okay.
I feel like Han could have fit anywhere in the first three movies. You know, but here's where he really makes a swan song. Here's where, to me, he feels the most Han Solo as he goes on and takes on the First Order one last time.
I still don't think that the death scene was like executed as well as it could have been. It just, for some reason, the timing felt off for me, but I'm glad that it brings you and others joy. For me, when I'm thinking of the prequel trilogy, or not the prequel trilogy, the sequel trilogy, my favorite character is Kylo Ren. Because Kylo Ren, to me, is the best part of the sequel trilogy. The intensity that Adam Driver brings to the role, and the fact that you have the story now of Kylo, the child of Leia, who is recently on. And if you've read, Bloodlines, is the son of Leia, who's been basically ostracized by the galaxy because it was revealed that Vader was her father. You have this basically confused boy that quit on the Jedi and went to go join Snoke, and at that time, there's all the potential. He was bad. The only problem that I had with Kylo was that he took off his helmet too soon. I wish they would not have revealed his face until The Last Jedi. I think that was a missed opportunity to just make the character a little bit more daunting.
More menacing.
But to me, like, Kylo is my favorite character, followed up by Rey, because Rey is that character that I think that a lot of young people can identify with. My experience that I had with Luke growing up, I feel like Rey is that accessible as well. What's your character? Oh, you already had Han Solo, so we need to go to the Last Jedi.
Yep, Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. And I'm going to have you go first. This is the last one. Just to recap everything, because we're about done with the show. So how this started was with Phantom Menace. We had Qui-Gon for both David and I. I said Mace Windu attack the clones. Gilbert said Count Dooku. Revenge of the Sith. He said it was a toss-up between Obi-Wan or Palpatine, and I basically said the same thing. Solo, I said Lando. Gilbert was Chewie. Rogue One was Dr. Krennic for David, and I was David Straven, or Draven. I say his name differently every time I bring it up. A New Hope, I said Luke. David said Obi-Wan. He liked Yoda for Empire Strikes Back. I liked I said Luke again, and then Return of the Jedi, I said Vader, and he went with Wicket. Force Awakens, I said Kylo, close, and it was a tie with Rey. But then you said Solo, and for The Last Jedi, you say who is the most your favorite character from The Last Jedi?
You're not going to like this answer because you don't like the way that Johnson took this character, but Luke Skywalker.
All right, you may defend. You may defend. I respect you. Listen, I've always said it. If it brings you joy, and I say this to everyone.
It does.
If it brings you joy and it works for you, then that's great. I'm glad that you're able to enjoy it.
Here's
Let's
a
have
man.
conversation.
Here's a man who's had a hard life. He's grown up in the desert, surrounded by nobody, and then he finally like makes a family, and half of them get blown up, or they're constantly being threatened of being blown up, and then a lot of them die because it's war. And then he starts to rebuild the Jedi Order again, and then that kind of falls on its face. This man just constantly faced with adversity, and so it is 100% understandable that he just wants to go right out his time reflecting and being grumpy. And I love the interactions. I love, Grandpa Grumpy Luke. I love the wisdom that he had. I loved his little exchange with Yoda, and I loved the way that he had that tender moment with Leia kissing her forehead before he goes out there and, gently brushes off his shoulder and says, "See you later, kid."
I think that was probably that probably was my favorite moment. That moment with Luke and Leia there at the end, and then Yoda and Luke.
That's my favorite moment. Yep.
Like that. That's like some of the best Star Wars we've ever gotten. It really is, and I thought that was you couldn't have ended that relationship better with Luke and Leia than that scene. I thought that's something that Rian Johnson just did an extremely it was exceptional. I'm going to go with Yoda because I really do think that scene in The Last Jedi maybe was my favorite scene of The Last Jedi. And I think that when I say that movie doesn't feel like a saga film, it doesn't feel like it's part of it, I feel like 1 through 7 feel connected. I don't feel like The Last Jedi does, but I think the thread that clings on, the thread that keeps that movie in line for me is bringing back Yoda, and I just thought the execution was so spot on, and what his lesson was to Luke, that our Padawan, our legacy, our Padawans it's what they live to be beyond us, that what they carry on. That's what determines how great of a master you are, and I thought that was really well told. So that's my pick, and that's your pick, and that's our pick. I thought that was great.
I thought it was fun.
I think this segment, Stay on Target, has so much potential, and I feel like every month we kind of reinvent the way we use it. And I would like to do it like kind of like this, where we're going through the movies, or we're diving into canon, or we tried making it debate, and that was something. The one time we did trivia, that was fun.
But, we don't even need to do Staying on Target every single week. We could do this once a month when there's a light news week or something. We could pick something like best fight, best character, best villain, best hero, best, whatevs.
And
Spaceship.
I think it's great, too, because I think when you're watching, whether that's here on the live stream or you're watching on the rewind, you have your favorite, you have your least favorite of, whether that's actor, weapon, ship, moment, whatever it is. So I think it makes the conversation real open for all of us. That's episode 60. That was a lot of fun. We had a great time
with John.
That was a great interview. We'll share that again tomorrow as its own video.
Awesome.
We'll re-release that tomorrow. So if you guys can check that out, that would be great. Talked about a lot. Really excited about what we're learning about this Obi-Wan limited series. Excited about, Episode 9, The Mandalorian, Jedi Fallen Order, the new EA video game. How this all shakes out leading to Star Wars Celebration is going to be really cool. We do have fan com link, but we don't have any tweets in this week. We actually brought Lacey's tweet up to give John a little trouble. But before we go, let's go ahead and dive into that live chat real quick. We're going to do this for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get out of here because, hour and a half show, and that's about where we're landing right now. But everyone has things to get to. We had Discovery Bay Comics stop by because he had to go to church. And you can't put church ahead of us, but we appreciate you making time.
But he did drop in, gave us a like, reminded everybody to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when we're posting content. You can be the first to know. There's
a lot of steps there, but you only have to do them once, and then you always know. And so just looking into the live chat real quick here, we've got... we do have Jesse. He says, I actually like Grumpy Luke. I just don't think he should have died. And I agree with that. I think I agree with that. I don't think that he needed to disappear at the end, but it did give some sense of closure, and it really left it all up in the air for what Episode 9 could be. JJ can literally do anything in this movie.
Yep.
So I think that's interesting. Aggressively Relaxing says, Luke and Solo being cowards bummed me out so much. Gannon's asking about fan comlink. Well, Patrick, if you've got a question right now that you want us to, that you think we should debate, let us know.
But he just threw one out there.
All right, here we go.
What's your take on the new TIE fighters? Are they practical or just made to sell toys?
When he's talking about the new TIE fighter, Patrick, can you clarify? Are you talking about like the new TIE fighters that we got in like Solo? Are we talking about like the new TIE fighters that we've just gotten, in, like the Force Awakens and
I think he's talking like
Last
the ones
Jedi.
we're seeing in the Resistance TV show, the different variations on the TIE fighter. I don't know all their different names anymore.
Okay. So TIE fighters plural. Yeah. Well, I think it's totally about making toys, but I think it's also a thing about like a Navy. Like our Navy has multiple different types of fighters and ships, and they have different purposes, and they have different kind of troops, right? So it would make sense that you'd have like the TIE fighter, the TIE bomber, the executors, like this elite class. But yet now you're in Resistance, and the one guy has his red executor, and then you go to Solo, and then they've got these like specialized. They look like TIE bombers coming out chasing Han during the Kessel Run. So I think part of it is you have to create new, because if you don't create new, then you have people saying, well, you're just rehashing the same stuff. You're using the same stuff. We want to see more. But then when you show all this different variety, wouldn't you say it does seem like a cash grab, but you're not going to appease everybody, David.
So I think some of the things that bother me with these new ships, and don't get me wrong, I love the new ships because I'm a big fan of that style. I've always felt like the bad guys in Star Wars have the cooler looking ships. My issue is that you have the Clone Wars, and that's where a lot of these vessels were created. And then you have the Rebel Alliance come, and the Empire has a completely different style of fleet ship. That's not practical. I mean, you look at the U.S. Navy right now, the most recent battleship built was World War II, 80 years ago.
Right.
So that's 80 years. That's not 20 years between the Clone Wars and when we pick up A New Hope, or when we end Return of the Jedi and get to, where are they finding the resources to build these massive fleets brand new from scratch without ravaging, all sorts. I mean, they do ravage planets to make the Navy they have. So I could see you have more realistically a mixture of new ships and then ships that are old or falling apart. You wouldn't just completely have a brand new style of Star Destroyer and go dock your old Star Destroyer. That's a waste of resources. You'd intermix the fleet.
And that's why I kind of wanted to see like original Star Destroyers in The Force Awakens used. But at the same time, it's been like a 20, 30 year gap there. Yeah. So like I guess in 20, 30 years, all those ships could be repurposed. But I think that was a great question. Thank you so much to Patrick. And he says, will you see more TIE interceptors because we are now getting Von Reg's red TIE? I don't know. I'd like to get another Lego interceptor. I think that'd be cool. Just because I think that's the coolest of all of them. My least favorite being the bomber. But that's a story for another day. Episode 50. 60. 60. We're out of the 50s.
We're out of the 50s.
We're in the 60s now.
60 is a great number.
60's on 6, Sirius XM. No, that's not the show. You're watching Beyond the Blast Doors, episode 60. So glad that you got to join us. Remember, you can always follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. That's where we share links to new videos, new episodes, when we're dropping announcements for new guests on the show. That's where you want to follow us.
You can get cool T-shirts like the one I'm wearing on tpublic.com. Also come in hoodies and mouse pads and all sorts of great stuff.
Conveniently enough, if you look in the description of this video down below, we have links to upcoming books that you can pre-order, the Age of Republic trade paperbacks. They're coming out, the Heroes and the Villains trades, and also a link to our TeePublic, as well as our Patreon, to our website so you can buy our pin. We've got all the links down in the description below. We want you to check all of those out. I am excited to share, though, for next week, because something that we're trying to do is we want to make sure that we have a live guest every week. Again, so much thanks to John Hoey joining us from StarWarsNewsNet.com, as well as the Resistance Broadcast. Next week, we believe we're going to have Tom King with Heroes of the Empire. He's the director and producer of the Heroes of the Empire documentary that's on Netflix right now. Dropped on from the Netflix, or dropped from the UK. It's now on Netflix worldwide. I got to watch it the other night. It's awesome. We're going to talk about him, talk with him about that project. So looking forward to that next Sunday here on Beyond the Blast Doors. Okay, we went like 36 minutes late. I had to go get lunch with my girlfriend. I think she's ready for us to be done. I think that you are ready for us to be done. So you can go have a great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next week. Let's roll the animation, because I always like to try and time it out. Will I get done talking before the blast? Who knows? We'll see you soon.
Thank you for watching Beyond the Blast Doors. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment. Beyond the Blast Doors, a Star Wars conversation.